Open Instagram or TikTok and search for foraging content. You'll find beautiful videos of people harvesting wild mushrooms, cooking elaborate forest-to-table meals, and presenting foraging as an accessible, trendy lifestyle choice. The production values are high, the aesthetics are gorgeous, and the safety information is often dangerously inadequate or completely absent. Social media has democratized access to foraging culture, which sounds wonderful until you realize it's also democratizing access to potentially fatal mistakes. Influencers with large followings post content about wild mushrooms, and their comment sections fill with people asking for identification help based solely on photos. This is where things get deadly. The fundamental problem is that mushroom identification from photographs alone is often impossible. You need to see features that don't photograph well: the texture of the cap surface, whether the stem has a ring or volva, the exact attachment pattern of gills to stem. You absolutely need a spore print, which requires collecting the mushroom and waiting 12 hours. You sometimes need microscopic examination of spore characteristics, chemical tests with reagents, and knowledge of geographic range and seasonal timing. A pretty photo on Instagram shows you none of this. Yet people in comment sections confidently proclaim that's a honey mushroom, safe to eat, or looks like chicken of the woods to me, based on a single image. The original poster, wanting to believe they've found something edible, accepts this crowdsourced identification and proceeds to cook and consume the mushroom. Specific dangerous trends keep emerging. There's the assumption that if something looks similar to cultivated mushrooms sold in stores, the wild version must be safe. This logic has killed people. Wild species that superficially resemble button mushrooms include deadly amanitas. Apps that claim to identify mushrooms from photos are marketed and shared widely despite high error rates, particularly with toxic species. The romanticization of foraging culture on social media strips away the expertise requirements. Experienced foragers spend years, sometimes decades, developing identification skills. They study under expert mycologists, join mushroom societies, learn microscopy techniques, and still approach unfamiliar species with extreme caution. Social media presents foraging as something you can learn from a few viral videos. Case documentation of social media-linked poisonings is starting to accumulate. People following influencer advice have been hospitalized. Groups sharing foraged meals after collective identification attempts have experienced mass poisonings. Someone uses an app that misidentifies a death cap as an edible species, trusts the technology, and ends up in liver failure. Digital literacy education becomes crucial. Followers need to understand that social media engagement metrics, likes, followers, comments, don't validate expertise. Someone can have 1 million followers and know absolutely nothing about mycology. Pretty photographs don't indicate safety. Confident-sounding advice in comments might come from people with zero actual knowledge. Platform responsibility for content moderation is a growing question. Should TikTok and Instagram actively monitor and potentially remove foraging content that could lead to deaths? Do they have any liability when users follow dangerous advice found on their platforms? Current legal frameworks largely protect platforms from this responsibility, but the ethical questions remain. The irony is that social media could be a powerful force for foraging safety education. Reputable mycologists, poison control centers, and university extension programs could reach massive audiences with accurate information. But algorithm-driven platforms favor engagement over accuracy, and sensational content about, "I found this amazing edible mushroom," generates more interaction than careful, nuanced safety warnings. Young people particularly vulnerable to these trends see foraging as ecological, sustainable, anti-capitalist, all attractive values that get wrapped around potentially deadly practices. The aesthetic appeal of wild food harvesting, the Instagram-worthy presentations, the sense of connection to nature, all of this bypasses the unglamorous reality that mushroom identification requires serious expertise, not just enthusiasm and a smartphone camera.